Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, or good evening, wherever you are in the world. It's 4 a.m. in South California. Oh, wow. You're either an early riser or you've not gone to bed yet. But it's 12 noon, just gone. I'm a little bit late logging on here. Yeah, it's just gone 12 in the UK. So, hey, this is wild. This is completely wild. So this broke yesterday, and I know a bunch of channels have covered this. Loads of people have played the press conference, the long press conference that was done by Suffolk County, New York, yesterday. I'm not going to play the press conference. It was like 50 odd minutes long, but I do have a link to it in the description box. So if you're brand new to this case, then the indictment, the Grand Jury Indictment, really fills you in what's actually going down here, what's actually happened. But in short, and actually, the instigator of this entire investigation was sparked by someone called Shannon Gilbert, who went missing in 2010. And Shannon Gilbert is someone who is on my list of cases to cover in my Crime Story Sunday series over on Michelle Walks, which I used to do weekly, but I haven't done one for a couple of months now, so weekly is just not on the cards. I take so long doing research for those episodes that I don't generally have time. But anyway, yeah, so Shannon Gilbert was on my list of really strange cases to cover. And Shannon Gilbert was an escort. She was getting clients from Craigslist, and she went to meet a client in Long Island, New York. She's from New Jersey, but she went to meet this client, and then she made this peculiar 911 call. And if you want to hear the 911 call from Shannon Gilbert, I've got a link to that in the description box as well. It's like the complete call is 22 minutes, I think. And Shannon Gilbert was saying that somebody's chasing her. And throughout that call, she goes from being really calm and almost speaking like she wasn't really listening, if you will, to screaming. You could hear someone talking to her in the background, who I think is the man who drove her to see this client, someone called Pack. And then the call ends with the sound of her possibly running. Like, it just sounds like the rhythm sounds like she's running. But she knocked on a couple of people's doors in this apartment complex. And a man and a woman both rang 911 saying that there was this girl, and one of them only put her age at 14 because she was so small, so petite. Anyway, when officers investigated, they couldn't find her, and that sparked a search, a long search of Gilgo Beach on Long Island, New York. Now, Shannon Gilbert wasn't found. She was found deceased, but she wasn't found for a whole year. And she was in this really marshy area just off Gilgo Beach, like further west than Gilgo Beach. But the search of Gilgo Beach was instigated, and 11 bodies were found. Just not complete bodies, human remains human remains that had been there probably for quite some time. At least some of them had. Some of them, the remains were kind of distributed, but the ones that have been murdered most recently, they were complete intact, but they were still human remains, practically skeletonized. Starkey Rottweilers member for 11 months. I must listen to Shannon's 911 call. Yeah, it's strange. It's very weird. Very weird. But the cops do not believe, this is the thing, the cops do not believe that Shannon Gilbert's death is part of this investigation, which has been going on since 2010. They believe, her family don't agree, her family believes she was murdered. But cops believe that she actually died of exposure, that she'd ran off, like probably on drugs or something. She'd ran off into the marsh and got stuck, and she died. Like the reeds in this marsh are like 10 to 12 feet high and would quickly disorient you. Whereas the others were found, I'll get the map up, it'd be easier to show you on the map. The others were found along a road about 20 to 30 feet away from the road, whereas Shannon was found in the marsh. Now, because all of the remains are, let me just get this up here. Because all of the remains have been there for quite some time, they haven't been able to ascertain a cause of death for any of them, a specific cause of death, other than homicidal violence, which is a shame. So we don't know how any of these people died. Now, Shannon Gilbert was found further west, I believe, more down here in a marshy area. I think more closer to Jones Beach than Gilgo Beach. And the other bodies were found along this road. So this is Gilgo Beach, about 20 to 30 feet off the road, and in very close proximity to each other. And the indictment explains this really well. This indictment is 32 pages, packed with information. So we're going to go through it all, because the press conference was very, very detailed. And I watched it on WFLA with JB. I like JB. So I watched it on WFLA, and JB stayed live a long time after the press conference, like, you know, just going through all of the details that we heard, that the cops don't normally release so much information so quickly. But they did. And they obviously did for a reason. And reading the indictment makes it clear to me why they have released all of this information. Not apartments, but a gated community. Yeah, it was a community. So the man and the woman, this Shannon had gone into this community, and a man rang saying that there was a 14-year-old girl being chased. And then a woman rang scared because there was this woman knocking on her door and she was scared. Is this the case where a police officer was considered a suspect? Yeah, in Shannon's case. So it's Shannon Gilbert's case, allegedly, the client she went to meet was a police officer. Now, I don't know that as a fact. As a complete fact, I don't know that. But because Shannon was found in a different location, further, I believe it's further west, she wasn't found with these bodies who were all in close proximity to each other along this stretch, along Gilgo Beach stretch, kind of here. And because they can't ascertain an exact cause of death for any of them, including Shannon, then we don't know. Now, Shannon's family paid for a private autopsy of Shannon, and the guy that did it, the private autopsy, was the same guy who did Gabby Petito's autopsy. Name escapes me. I just know it's the same guy. Somebody might remind me. But I'll just get the article up. If I can find his name. I've got this long article here. This is from News Channel 4, New York. So this was last year. This was from last year when they released the 911 call. So Shannon Gilbert's 911 call was released last year. Where is it about the autopsy? There. So the autopsy proved inconclusive, but a private pathologist hired by the Gilbert family also found insufficient evidence to determine how she died. But the pathologist, the noted Michael Baden, that's the guy. He's the guy who did Gabby Petito's autopsy. I just remember his name. Who had been hired to do independent autopsies by George Floyd family and others, did say Gilbert's remains showed signs that could be consistent with manual strangulation as a possible cause. Now, I don't think he was the person who did the autopsy. I think he reviewed the findings of the autopsy. I might be wrong. So the autopsy for Shannon was inconclusive. They couldn't even determine a manner of death. The cops believe it was accidental and she died of exposure. However, there is this potential for that to have been a homicide as well. But along this stretch, are you going now, Kyle?
Yeah.
All right, see you later. Yeah. He's going to work. Along this stretch, there's been 10 bodies found along this stretch. So it's 11 in total, but I think that includes Shannon. But there's 4 specifically that are being, that the capture of the Long Island serial killer, LISK, as he's become known over the years, because this has been going on since 2010, right? So it's a lot. If you're brand new to this, it's a lot to wrap your head around. So along here, there's 10 in total, but 4 are the subject of the arrest of the alleged killer. And I believe they've got so much on this guy. His name is Rex Heuermann. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing his surname right. But they have a lot on him. He's a 59-year-old architect who works in Manhattan. And he lives just a few miles away from Gilgo Beach in just up here. There. That's where he lives, in Massapequa. And Long Island is so populated. I mean, just look how densely populated it is. But he lives there, and it's just a short drive, 15 to 20-minute drive down here onto Gilgo Beach. So the remains are said to have been deposited from the late 90s onwards. Like some of them, they believe, have been there since the late 90s, because this is a remote area. It's not a place where tourists go. Like, it's very marshy, and there's just nothing there. on Gilgo Beach. And at night, it's very, very dark because there's nothing there. So unlike the rest of Long Island, which is so densely populated, like you literally can't breathe for, for other people. And then you've got Long Beach, which is more of a touristy area, and Jones Beach, they're more touristy. Gilgo Beach isn't. It's remote and not a lot of people go there. So it's a perfect place to deposit bodies. Soothing Sandals, thank you, thank you. Welcome to the Secret Agents Club. Thanks for joining. But yeah, there's 4 young women who are subject of this investigation. And they were the ones that cops believe were murdered the most recently. The others include young women, a young man who is an Asian man, allegedly wearing women's clothes, and that potentially becomes very relevant when we get to the indictment. And there's also a toddler, a very young child, as part of the remains. So at the moment, there isn't enough evidence to link the rest of these remains, including the man and the toddler, to the rest of the murders, the 4 that have been the subject of this investigation. Now, Rex Heuemann he's been indicted on 3 of the 4 by a grand jury. The other one is included in the indictment, but they don't have enough evidence at the moment to charge him. But they believe she's also one of his victims. But I think they've pulled the trigger, so to speak, on the arrest sooner rather than later, because potentially they could have, behind the scenes, been collecting evidence that he was going to kill again. So they pulled the trigger to get him off the streets. And I want to show you a few clips before we get into the indictment. I want to show you a few clips. So I've got this one. This is them. It's only a few seconds long, this. But this is them trailing him. And they've been surveilling him for over a year now. So although the remains were found in 2010, the investigation stalled, and this all became a cold case until February of last year, so February of 2022, when a new team took over. They established a task force, including the best minds on homicide from the FBI, the state police, and local law enforcement. And it paid dividends because very quickly they established a suspect, which is Rex, this man here, the 59-year-old architect who lives in Massapequa. I'm going to have to learn how to say these names, but works in Manhattan, and he owns an architect firm in Manhattan, married with 2 children, 2 older children, not little baby children. And it seems to be that these murders take place when his wife and children are on vacation elsewhere. Let me just have a look here. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for the $15. Thank you for the explicit review. Remember when these happened? Yeah, I mean, I've been aware of the Shannon Gilbert case for the longest time. Like I said at the beginning, it's on my list. It's not anymore because there's been this development. So I won't be doing Shannon as a Crime Story Sunday anymore because this is now all blown wide open. Yeah, pronunciation. Yeah, Massapequa. 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 Okay. Well, I laugh at Americans for not being able to pronounce towns and counties in my country. I I watch Kendall Ray, and she's hilarious when she covers a UK case. We've got a county down south called Devon, and Kendall Kendall was calling it Devon. In Devon, there was this murder. Oh dear. So I laugh, and you have my permission to laugh at me when I produce things incorrectly. It will take me a while. Whenever there's a new case, it takes me a while to get the names down. But yeah, so this new team took over in February 2022, and they've cracked it. And I truly believe they have. I truly believe this guy, based on the evidence in the indictment, they've got their man. Like today was the day, and he was arrested. And I've got a little clip from his arrest as well. On Thursday night, they basically just swamped him in the street. They just swamped him, and he was arrested without incident. And his lawyer did a very quick press conference yesterday, who said that he said he didn't do it. Of course, he's going to say he didn't do it, but he did do it. Look, based on the amount of evidence they have, and I believe that they gave us a lot of evidence, basically tracing through all of the different lines of inquiry that they've done. I believe that they've given us that because it's indisputable. However, I believe there's also more they've got that they haven't released. You know, the stuff that they don't need to release, they haven't released. But this is a lot. And this 32-page indictment is packed full of information. Go find me, member for 7 months. Please cover Carlethia Russell, missing from Hoover, Alabama. Carlethia Russell. Okay, I will. At least I'll take a look. Carlethia Russell. I'll remember that, I think. Okay. Actually, I'll just put that in my notes, or else I won't remember. Carlethia Russell. Okay. All right, let's play this. This is just 16 seconds of them following him. So you see him walking, and then you see the men in black behind him. It's funny. Watch this. So that's him. Doesn't look too much like a serial killer. Watch this. So they've been surveilling him. They've been surveilling him for a year or more. And wouldn't you notice if there's these men in black types following you down the street? But the thing is, I mean, New York, it's so densely packed. Like Manhattan is so densely packed, and Long Island's so densely packed that maybe you just didn't notice. Maybe you didn't notice. Now I've got a little bit. It's not very clear, but I do have a little bit of when they arrested him. Just let me find this. Hold on. It's ABC News that has got it. Here it is. Okay.
And a fourth is.
All right. So it's just about here. So all these links that I'm showing you are in the description box. Okay, so this is when they arrested him. So that's him there. And then they just swamp him. They just swamp him and take him. Imagine the shock, though. Imagine the shock. And that's his, let's take them off. That's his mugshot. So 59-year-old architect. Look at those men in black. Isn't it? It is kind of funny. You know, it's the type of stuff that you see in movies. This is what it's absolutely wild. And I'm sure this case will get wilder because I think they will eventually link the fourth victim to him. But the others, they don't have evidence at the moment because with the three that they have indicted him on, here come the Men in Black, yeah, the whole thing. With the three that they have indicted him on, they've got DNA evidence. And they've got a bunch of surveillance, digital surveillance, phone data. But the last thing I want to play you before we get to the indictment is just one more that I'm going to find. And it's the reactions from his neighbours who say that he's just a really quiet guy. And there's one of them that is just laughing. And she's laughing because she's shocked. But I need to share the screen on that one. Hold on, I'll get rid of that. I've got too many tabs open at the moment now. Okay. She's laughing because she's shocked. But can we take some bets here? Can we take some bets as to who's the first channel that's going to claim they've got evidence that this guy is innocent? Let's take some bets because it will happen. Because not only has his DNA been found on the victims, his wife's has as well. Now, the DNA has come from hair. And his wife's hair has been found on at least one of these victims. But it's transference, right? If you... Zav, yeah, based on Zavgirl's recent escapades, maybe BHB, CNN. Yeah, the pizza. So they got, yeah, we'll go into the pizza. We'll go into the pizza. But the DNA that they found on the victims comes from hair. And I think it's because he's been transporting these victims, either alive or deceased, in a vehicle that his wife uses, and they've got the vehicle. But also, these killings occurred when his wife and children were away. So it's quite possible that he was taking these victims, possibly alive, for the thing that he was paying them for, because these are escorts, these are sex workers, to their home. And then he's tying them up at their home. And then whether he's murdering them at home or whether he's taking them somewhere else to murder them, I don't know. Because we don't know the cause of death. We don't know how they were murdered. We just know they were murdered. So, yeah, let's take some bets that they'll say that the wife was involved, the wife knew, and these neighbours are dodgy. Now, let's listen to these neighbours. It's only a minute long, this.
We've been here for about 30 years, and the guy's been quiet, never really bothers anybody. We're kind of shocked, to tell you the truth, you know.
Do you know him?
Yeah, his name is Rex. He's got a wife and 2 kids. The guy pretty much keeps to himself. We just say hello to each other, and that's about it. You know, how you doing, blah, blah, blah. Like I said, we're shocked because this is a very, very quiet neighborhood. Everybody knows each other. All of our neighbors are, we're all friendly, and there's never been a problem at all. Not a scream, a yell, nothing.
It's crazy. It's mind-blowing. Mm-hmm. It's, quiet as people park. Shocking. Sad. Really. I mean, you think of the victims. It's sad. It's tragic. It's not about him. It's not about us. It's about the victims.
We've been here for...
Yeah, so... Yeah, sometimes people laugh when they're nervous, when they're shocked. But yeah, his neighbours say he's a quiet guy. They're a quiet family. They don't bother anybody. They've never heard any screams or anything untoward going on from the home. One of his kids is special needs. Yes, I've heard that as well. But this all happens when they're away. And they've been able to tie the times that his wife and his children are away to these murders. So they've got a whole pile of circumstantial evidence, and then they've also got forensic evidence as well. So, yeah, his daughter works for him, yeah, and his son's the one with special needs. Disbelief, yeah. I mean, just imagine if in your quiet neighborhood somebody was just suddenly swamped and was a serial killer. It's crazy. But okay, without further ado, let's get on to looking at this indictment. So we're going to go through the whole thing. So he was indicted by grand jury, and they use the grand jury system because it's secret. So he had no idea, absolutely no idea, that he was being surveilled. I think the cops here and the FBI have played a blinder. It's just the amount of evidence they've got is astonishing. And nobody knew that this guy was even being investigated. None whatsoever. So they indicted him by grand jury before the arrest. So this is a grand jury indictment. This isn't technically an arrest warrant. This is a grand jury indictment for his arrest. The hunt for the Long Island serial killer, 48 Hours, came out 20 hours ago and goes over all of it. The dodgy cop, she ran off into the marsh on drugs theory. The fact she was also had a damaged hyoid. Yeah, that's Shannon, yeah. And Michael Baden, the pathologist, it was because her hyoid bone was broken that he believes that the signs of strangulation. But she'd been lying out there for over a year, and the hyoid bone is a small bone. So if there'd been any form of, I don't know, animal involvement or anything like that, that could be the reason why the hyoid bone was broken. But yeah, Shannon's family firmly believe that she was murdered. Yeah, Michael Baden, who's the guy who did Gabby Petito's autopsy. Thinking of police saying there's at least one pedo in every single neighborhood, and I wonder which person it is in my own street. You can't tell. Well, years ago, when my grandparents lived in this house, because this used to be my grandparents' house, they had a pedo living next door. So, yeah, this man came to live next door to them, and he was a convicted pedo. It didn't last long in the neighborhood. He was kind of driven out and he left. But he was inviting local children, boys, to come into his home. So he'd not learnt his lesson. Anyway, right, let's read this. So defendant Rex A. Heuermann. Rex A. Heuermann stands before this court charged by the grand jury with murder in the first degree in violation of New York State Penal Code section 125.27 for the death of Melissa Barthélemy. Melissa Barthélemy on or about July 10th, 2009. So they've got these dates from the surveillance. So they've even been able to get some clarity into when these women died. Murder in the first degree for Megan Waterman on or about June 6, 2010. murder in the first degree for the death of Amber Costello on or about September the 2nd, 2010. And then they hedge the bets, they always do. So they've got 3 counts of murder in the first degree, but also they can indict him for murder in the second degree because they don't know how these women died. They do not know how these women died. All they know is this is homicide. So at a jury trial, then if the jury think there isn't enough evidence of murder in the first degree, they can consider the option of murder in the second degree. So this is clever when the cops do this. It's standard that the cops do this. Like in the UK, it's when I was a jury member on a murder trial, they charged these 2 men, a father and a son, with murder. But when we went to deliberate, we were also given the option to convict them on manslaughter. So if we didn't think there was sufficient evidence for murder, then we could consider a manslaughter conviction. So this is kind of the same thing. So for both Melissa, Megan, and Amber, he's been charged with murder in both the first degree and the second degree. And then there's another woman as well who I think they will eventually get evidence and charge him with her murder as well. Like I said before, I think they pulled the trigger as quickly as they could on this because they wanted to get him off the streets. So, as described below, based on the serious, heinous nature of these serial murders, the planning and forethought that went into these crimes, the strength of the people's case, the length of incarceration the defendant faces upon conviction, the extended period of time that this defendant was able to avoid apprehension, his recent searches for sadistic materials, child P, images of the victims and their relatives. He was harassing the relatives. The relatives had calls from the alleged killer, and he was surveilling the victims' relatives. So I think the cops did exactly the right thing in getting this guy off the street, because his recent searches, even though these women had died in 2009 and 2010, his searches were becoming more and more problematic. So they had to pull that trigger and get him off the streets before somebody else got hurt. So why he'd not killed since 2010 is an interesting conversation. I mean, it's 13 years ago. But we don't know he hasn't. This is the thing. But the cops might know, because the cops have got everything on this guy. The cops have got everything. But sometimes serial killers will go through this kind of boom bust kind of thing, that they will kill several times in a short period of time, and then they'll stop. You know, BTK did the same. They'll stop for whatever reason. But his violent nature was still very much part of his life, just based on the searches he was doing. Just creepy guy. Counter surveillance conducted online and to the criminal investigation. His use of fictitious names, burner email and cell phone accounts, and his access to and history of possessing firearms. The only means to ensure defendant Rex Heuermann's return to court is to remand him without bail. And he was arraigned, and he has been jailed without bail. So, discovery of the victims. Like I said at the beginning, if you don't know anything at all about this case, then the indictment really fills you in on the background, the backstory to it all. And I've got the link to this indictment in the description box as well. So I've got a bunch of links that you'll find interesting to get you up to speed on this whole thing, because this just came out of the blue. Came out of the blue. He was arrested Thursday night, and then it broke Friday. Like they brought the story Friday. So discovery of the victims. On December 11th, 2010, police officer John Malliot was conducting a training exercise with his canine partner Blue along Ocean Parkway in Gilgo Beach, Suffolk County, New York. Now, some people have questioned this because the investigation into this area was started with the disappearance of Shannon Gilbert, but that was the instigator. Now, but perhaps this officer and his dog were on a training exercise just along this area, maybe with the hope of finding human remains. But it doesn't matter how they were initially found. The fact that they were, the fact that this area was highlighted is the important thing here. Okay, so it was a cadaver dog that found the first set of human remains, and then they honed in on the entire area, the stretch of Ocean Parkway, which is the road, and found a lot. During the course of the training exercise, Blue located a set of human remains. The remains were later identified to be those of Melissa Bartholomew. 2 days later, on December 13th, 2010, the Suffolk County PD continued to search in the proximity to where the remains of Melissa were recovered. On that day, members of the SCPD found 3 additional sets of human remains within 1/4 mile of the first discovery. So 4 sets of human remains, which have been there for months, in one case a year, along this stretch of road, Ocean Parkway, that runs parallel to Gilgo Beach, and the remains were 20 to 30 feet away from the road. So he'd literally just stopped, dragged the body out of the vehicle and just deposited it. Not made an attempt to hide it, not made an attempt to bury it, just dumped it. Just dumped it. All 4 within 1/4 mile of each other. But the other sets, the sets that have been there longer, the sets of remains that have been there longer, are on the same stretch. And I think it's the Asian man, the young man, that's the closest to these 4. And he's only a few hundred yards away. And then the rest are dispersed further along the road. So there's about roughly a 2-mile stretch where these 10 sets of human remains were found. So the 4 that are the subject of this investigation, and then another 6, including young women, a young man, and a toddler. So horrendous. Now, the speculation is, are all of these connected? Is it the same guy that's done all of them? Or is this just a perfect place to deposit bodies? Is there more than one person involved? Is there 2 killers that have been working in that area, so to speak, who don't know each other? We don't know any of those details yet. I would say that, in my opinion, at this moment in time, it's my gut feeling that they're all connected, that it's the same guy. But I don't know. I don't know. But these are the ones that most recently died, and these are the ones that they've got evidence for. Well, at least 3 of them, they've got DNA evidence linking him to those bodies. One of them, as I said, they've not quite got enough evidence yet, but I think they will charge him. These 3 additional sets of remains were identified as those of Maureen Brainard Barnes, so that's the one that they've not charged him with at the moment, Megan Waterman and Amber Costello. The cause of death for all 4 women was determined to be homicidal violence. So this is the area where they were all found. And then, so we've got Maureen Brainard Barnes, 33 feet from the pavement. Melissa Bartholomew, 27 feet from the pavement. Megan Waterman, 22, nearly 23 feet from the pavement. And Amber Costello, 29 feet from the pavement. And then you've got, let's do, so 1 is Maureen. So Maureen was there. And then Melissa, then Megan, and then Amber. So that's presumably that's the order in which they were found. So we've got 1 body. So the whole from number 4 to number 3. So the furthest 2 away from each other are 1,415 feet away from each other. So that's about a quarter of a mile. And then you've got 810 feet between this one and this one. 25 feet. Oh no, 251 feet from this one and this one. And then 359 feet from this one and this one. So a quarter of a mile. And remember, this guy just lived 15-20 minutes north of this area. Okay. The investigations into these deaths were linked, as in addition to other factors, the victims each appeared to have been placed in close proximity to one another, 22 to 33 feet from the edge of the parkway. All were petite females, approximately 22 to 27 years old, believed to be working as sex workers. All had missing clothing and personal possessions. All had been killed by homicide. All had contact shortly before their disappearance with a person using a burner phone, cell phones without associated verified ID. And the cell phones of 2 of the 4 victims, Brainard Barnes and Bartholomew, were used by the killer after their deaths. This guy was using their phones to speak to families after they died. Yes, the baby found was related to one of the Jane Does. That's right. So there's 2 or 3 sets of remains that have not been ID'd. One was recently ID'd. One of the Jane Does was recently ID'd using genetic genealogy. Some of the victims have been dismembered. We don't know that because some of these remains have been there since the 1990s. So whether they'd been dismembered and then just the pieces scattered, or whether animal activity had distributed them over the years, I think probably animal activity might have distributed them over the years. Like dogs and stuff. That's what happened to Brian Laundrie. Brian Laundrie was eaten by dogs. Yes, I know, Beach Fairy. I'll get there. Don't you worry. We're reading every word of this. We're reading every word. We'll get there. So there's a footnote here. Although the defendant is not yet charged with any crimes as to the disappearance and murder of Miss Brainard Barnes, as set forth below, defendant Rex Heuermann is the prime suspect in her death and the investigation, which is continuing and is expected to be resolved soon. Moreover, there is substantial evidence of defendant Heuermann's involvement in the disappearance and death of Miss Brainard Barnes, which evidence closely fits the modus operandi of the defendant in relation to the deaths and of the 3 women, which supports the current charges. As such, this bail application contains descriptions of that evidence which demonstrates the strength of the people's case as currently charged. So I think they'll get charges. The fact that he had her phone after her death, I think, is pretty strong evidence. Pretty strong evidence. Why would he have her phone after her death? I suppose he could argue, oh, I found it. I found it. Whatever. Okay. In addition, each of the 4 victims were found similarly positioned, bound in a similar fashion by either belts or tape, with 3 of the victims found wrapped in a burlap type material. So you basically bound them around the head, bound them around the chest, and bound them around the feet. So whether he bound them while they were alive or he bound them once they were dead to transport them, I don't know. I don't know. That's right, Rome Mountain survivors. You wonder how many haven't been found. I would imagine that all of the ones that are there on or around Gilgo Beach have been found, because that area has been gone over with a fine-tooth comb. But there might be more, kind of slightly more inland, potentially, if we just take a look at this. So this is Gilgo Beach here. This is Ocean Parkway, the road. And the bodies are kind of distributed near the side of the road. But you've got this, all of this, which is just like swampland. So potentially there could be bodies that haven't been found because they were deposited in the swampland. So if we just zoom out and look at the way that he lives here, so he could easily have driven along here and dumped a body off there, rather than driving all the way to Gilgo Beach. So who knows? Who knows? There could be more. Or along here, there could be more. Just because of the topography of this. You know, you've just got water, swamp. I mean, honestly, if I was a murderer and I was disposing of bodies in this area, they'd all have gone in the swamp. Much harder to find in a swamp than on the side of a road. I mean, the side of a road just seems lazy to me. They should install cameras there. They absolutely should. Absolutely should. Maybe they will. Maybe they have by now. I don't know. Okay, recent investigation. In January 2022, the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office assigned an experienced team of investigators, analysts, and prosecutors to work jointly with law enforcement partners from the Suffolk County Police Department, New York State Police, Suffolk County Sheriff's Office, and Federal Bureau of Investigation. A comprehensive review of every item of evidence and information in this investigation was undertaken by the team. I thought it was February, but it's January. All right. So the beginning of 2022, a completely new team came in. What do I say? What do I say about cases that have floundered on law enforcement desk for months into years? What do I say? They need a new team. And in this case, this paid dividends very, very quickly. Now, in the past, this investigation into the Long Island serial killer just completely stalled due to the lack of interest. Also, corruption was involved. I mean, we could do a whole video on the corruption that had gone on in this area in Suffolk County in years gone by. That was the reason why this entire investigation stalled. And if you're thinking, I wish this would happen in the Summer Wells case, I'm telling you, that's the first thing I thought. It's the thing I've been saying for months now, that we need a new team, a completely new team, new set of eyes in the Summer Wells case. That's how it works. Oh, we've got torrential rain just started. We may be in for a thunderstorm. So if my internet goes down, I will be back. Oh, I think that was just lightning. we are due a thunderstorm. So if I go down, don't worry, I will be back. All right. A comprehensive review of every item of evidence and information in this investigation was undertaken on March 14th, 2022. So only 2 months into the renewed joint investigation, this comprehensive review led to the discovery of a first-generation Chevrolet Avalanche that was registered to defendant Rex Heuemann at the time of these murders. And he's still got it. He's still got that Avalanche truck. It's been towed away. I bet there's a bunch of evidence in that truck. As described below, this was significant. So 2 months into the investigation, they got a suspect. After 12 years. After 12 years, well, not quite 12 years, because March 2022, and the bodies were found December 2010. So 11 years. 11 and some years after this had floundered, they had a suspect. Thank you, Shelley Roo, for the $7.99 Australian dollars. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, they found a male body. They did. The male body is near these 4. And as we'll see coming up shortly, I think he's connected as well. Because this Rex guy wasn't just interested in young women. He was also interested in men and children based on his internet searches. So this guy was just a wrong un through and through. A wrong un through and through. Okay. As described below, this was significant because a witness into the disappearance of Amber Costello identified a first-generation Chevrolet Avalanche as the vehicle believed to have been driven by her killer. This discovery led to a comprehensive investigation of defendant Heuemann, which consisted, get this is astonishing, consisted of over 300 subpoenas, search warrants, and other legal processes to obtain evidence. And this guy was none the wiser. He had no idea this was going on. No idea. It's amazing. I love it. It's like a movie, right? I mean, I'm just so pleased for the families of the victims. And a family of Jessica Taylor, who's another one of the women whose remains were found there, has also spoken out, saying they hope that to have justice for her soon. So reading between the lines, I think they believe that he's involved in her death as well. Okie dokie. Thank you for the $10. Thank you. The lab's in the house. Hello, Josh. Hello. Okie dokie. Where did my messages go? I've no idea. I do not know what happens to messages, both in the chat and in the comment section. Sometimes YouTube eats them. I have found in chats that if you use certain emojis, your message gets blocked. There's certain emojis that YouTube can't deal with. I don't know why. It's just something that has been happening recently. No, the super chat message came through. The super chat message is right there. Right there. Oh, I see what you mean. There was a message attached to your super chat. I get you. I think that's what you mean. Well, no, we didn't get a message, but I did get the $10. So thank you for that. Truth and transparency. No, you're not banned. No one's banned. Well, there's a few people on my channel that have been blocked, but not you. Not you. All right. The discovery led to a comprehensive investigation of defendant Heuermann, which consisted of over 300 subpoenas, search warrants, and other legal processes to obtain evidence. As discussed more fully below, among the items uncovered were cell phone billing records corresponding to a cell site location for 1, the burner phones used to arrange meetings with 3 of the 4 victims, 2, the taunting calls made to a relative of Miss Bartholomew, 3, a call made by a detective to Miss Bartholomew's cell phone while looking into her disappearance, and 4, calls checking voicemail on Miss Brainard Barnes' cell phone after her disappearance. He's checking her messages after he's murdered her, allegedly. In addition, Heuermann lived in Massapequa, if I've said that right, Massapequa Park, where the victims were believed to have disappeared from. And he worked in Midtown Manhattan in the vicinity where the taunting calls were made to the sister of Miss Bartholomew. And I believe it's her sister who he was stalking online. Thundering in Scarborough, UK, dog going nuts. Scarborough's over the east coast. I'm over the west. But maybe I'll escape it. I don't mind thunder as long as it leaves my internet alone. I don't mind it at all. Okay. As set forth more fully below, defendant Heuermann is believed to be the person who used the burner phones to communicate with each of the 4 victims prior to their disappearance, and who used Miss Brainard's cell phone and Miss Bartholomew's cell phones after their deaths. Both defendant Heuermann and these burner cell phones had significant connections to both Midtown Manhattan and Massapequa Park, New York. So now it sets them all out now. So the disappearance of each of these. So Maureen Brainard Barnes, he's not been charged with her murder yet, but I think it's coming. Maureen Brainard Barnes was last seen on July 9th, 2007 in New York City. At that time, she was believed to be working as a sex worker. On July 6, 2007, Miss Brainard Barnes' cell phone was contacted by a burner phone. Between July 6, 2007 and July 9, 2007, there were 16 interactions between this burner phone and Brainard Barnes' cell phone. So he's ringing her phone. Like, it's just nuts. On July 9, 2007, the last cell site location for the Brainard Barnes cell phone was at approximately 11:56 p.m. in Midtown Manhattan near the 59th Street Bridge. Thereafter, the Brainard Barnes cell phone had no further activity until July 12, 2007. On July 12th, 3 days after her disappearance, 2 outbound calls were made from the Brainard Barnes' cell phone, checking her voicemail from a cell site location near the Long Island Expressway in Islandia. Why wouldn't he just throw her phone away? Why did he keep it? To see what the messages were being, to see, you know, whether people missed her, maybe. His burner phones really burnt him. They absolutely did. Totally did. Okay, disappearance and murder of Melissa Bartholomew. So Melissa was last seen on July 10th, 2009. And also, he seems to murder them in the summer. So like July. Now, this is possibly the time when his family are taking a vacation. So the wife takes the kids away for a summer vacation, leaving him home alone because he's so busy working in his architect business that he absolutely cannot have a vacation. That's the kind of conversation that I speculate would have happened. So he gets them out of the way. He owns another house. Well, the house that everybody's kind of focused on is like this little rundown place. So it's possible that he owns other properties. Can you imagine the shock and horror his wife and daughter are feeling right now? Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You know, nobody had any idea. Nobody had any idea. So, July 3rd, 2009, Miss Bartholomew was contacted by a burner phone. Thereafter, the Bartholomew cell phone was contacted by this burner phone on July 6th, July 9th, July 10th, 2009, which was the last day she was seen alive. On July 10th, cell site records indicate the burner phone travelled from Massapequa Park to Midtown Manhattan. Later that evening, the Bartholomew cell phone travelled from Midtown Manhattan to Massapequa, with the last cell site location being in Massapequa on July 11, 2009, at approximately 1:43 a.m. On July 11th, Miss Bartholomew's cell phone was used to make an outbound call, checking her voicemail from a cell site location in Freeport. So he's taking them, he's checking their voicemail and then probably getting rid of them, I would imagine. On July 11th and July 12th, the Bartholomew phone made 2 more outbound calls, checking her voicemail from cell site locations in Babylon. July 17th, July 23rd, August 5th, August 19th, and August 26th. God, he kept it for a while. The Bartholomew phone made taunting calls to Miss Bartholomew's family members, some of which resulted in a conversation between the caller, who was a male, and a relative of Miss Melissa Bartholomew, in which the male caller admitted killing and essaying Miss Bartholomew. How cruel is this? How cruel is this? Anyone have True Finder, you can look up to see his other properties. I gave up my subscription. I'll look up. I mean, I guess the cops will have all of that information, because obviously if he owns multiple properties, well, it could be one of those properties where some of them were murdered. A true sadist, absolutely, totally. If I find any other locations, I will share them. But this is so brand new. This is such a lot to start with. I mean, just the indictment itself is like, it's mind-boggling how much information they've got. Okay. As described below, the cell site locations of the Bartholomew phone during these taunting calls were all in Midtown Manhattan. So he's calling them from his workplace or outside his workplace. The disappearance and murder of Megan Waterman. Megan Waterman was last seen alive at the Holiday Inn in Harpaig. I don't know how to say that. New York on June 6, 2010. So another one in the summer, June and July. This is when he's doing his murdering. At approximately 1:30 a.m. At the time, she was believed to be working as a sex worker. On June 5th, 2010, Miss Waterman's cell phone was contacted by a burner phone, which had just been activated that day. Thereafter, the Waterman phone communicated with this burner phone on June 6, 2010 at approximately 1:31 a.m., which is around the time Megan Waterman was captured on video surveillance exiting the Holiday Inn for the last time. Following that communication, the burner phone had no further phone activity. Okay, so he didn't try to taunt her family or check her phone or whatever, I don't know. However, cell site records show that the Waterman phone travelled to Massapequa Park, with the last cell site location being in Massapequa Park at approximately 3:11 a.m. in the vicinity of the residence of defendant Heuermann. Disappearance and murder of Amber Costello. Amber Costello was last seen alive on September the 2nd, 2010. So he did one in June and then another one in September. So 2 in a 3-month period. Leaving her residence at 1112 America Avenue in West Babylon during the late evening hours. At that time, she was believed to be working as a sex worker. September 1st, 2010, the day prior to her disappearance, a cell phone was contacted by a burner phone. On September 1st, this burner cell phone had communications with Costello at approximately 11:33 p.m. and 11:34 p.m. During those communications, the burner phone connected to cell site towers in West Amityville, Horror, and Massapequa Park. Thereafter, the burner cell phone traveled to West Babylon in proximity to the residence of Amber Costello. So the burner phone's traveling to her place. So he's traveling to her place. And I contact with the Costello phone at approximately 12:05 a.m. It gets interesting. According to witnesses around the time of these communications between the burner cell phone and Costello's phone on September 1st and September 2nd, a prostitution client showed up at Miss Costello's residence located in West Babylon, New York. After the client entered the home, a ruse was executed on the client whereby a person pretending to be the outraged boyfriend of Amber Costello and the client left from the residence while Amber Costello retained the money and the client had bought so he paid her, and then the ruse was that someone came in saying being outraged, so this client leaves. So it's a ruse that cost him badly, because it didn't just cost him money, but it also gave cops a really good description. Really good description. Based upon interviews, that client was described as a large white male, approximately 6'4" to 6'6", and he's 6'4", in his mid-40s, with dark bushy hair and big oval style 1970s type eyeglasses. Now, I haven't seen any pictures of him in 1970s type eyeglasses, but I will I will believe it. A witness described him to police as appearing like an ogre. Furthermore, a witness noticed a first-generation Chevrolet Avalanche parked in the driveway of the residence. So that's two different sightings of this Chevrolet Avalanche at two different murder victims. According to the witness, following the ruse, this client said he was just her friend, tell her I'll give her a call, and walked out of the front door. Thereafter, approximately 1:18 a.m. on September 2nd, after the ruse had been perpetrated, the burner phone sent a text message to the Costello phone which stated, "That was not nice to do. I credit next time." So he's got credit for next time. Phone records show that the burner phone was located in Massapequa Park within 2 minutes of this text message being sent. According to a witness, later the next day, on September 2nd, Miss Costello was again contacted by the same client that was at the house the night before with the avalanche. Further, Amber told us that he wanted to see her again, but he didn't want to come back to the house because of her boyfriend. Thereafter, on September 2nd, at approximately 9:32 p.m., the same burner phone from the previous evening communicated with the Costello phone. During this communication, the burner phone used a cell site location in Midtown Manhattan, so his workplace. Following this communication, and based upon the cell site records, the burner phone traveled to Massapequa Park, had contact with the Costello phone at approximately 10:39 p.m. and 11:05 p.m. Cell site records for the burner phone indicated that approximately 11:17 p.m. the phone traveled to West Babylon in proximity to the residence of Amber Costello. Subsequently, Amber left her own cell phone behind, walking out of the front door of the residence, and was seen alive for the last time. Shortly after Miss Costello left the house, a witness observed a dark-coloured truck pass the house, specifically coming from the direction that Amber had walked towards. So that's really sad that she went back and she agreed to meet him again. Is he anyone who was originally suspected? No, this came out of the blue. There was no suspect in this case that the public knew about, but the cops had been tailing him for well over a year and just kept it all really quiet and done the indictment via grand jury to keep it all secret. So they played really well there. I mean, okay. But if he has done more in years past, I think it depends on the cell records, doesn't it? How far they can track cell records back as to how far back they can work out what he's actually been doing. Okay, where are we? Okay. Records established that defendant Heuermann's wife was out of New York for the disappearance of Bartholomew, Waterman, and Costello. Significantly, travel records show that on July 8, 2009, defendant Heuermann's wife departed the United States for Iceland. On August 18, 2009, defendant Heuermann's wife returned to the United States. Consequently, Heuermann's wife was out of the country during the time of Melissa Bartholomew's disappearance. Based upon cellular telephone billing records on June 4th, 2010, so look how far they've been able to go back for records on this guy. Look at it. The cellular telephone subscribed to by defendant Heuermann's wife travelled from New York to Maryland. On June 8, 2010, the cellular telephone subscribed to by his wife returned to New York from Maryland. Consequently, based upon phone records, his wife's phone was out of New York during the time of Megan Waterman's disappearance. Based upon phone records, August 28, 2010, the cellular telephone subscribed to by his wife travelled from New York to New Jersey. On September 5th, 2010, the phone returned to New York from New Jersey. So that was, it's only a short trip, wasn't it? Consequently, the phone subscribed to by his wife was out of New York during the time of Amber Costello's disappearance. So once his wife goes away, the absolute low-life pervert goes to play in the worst possible way. So billing records for his phone. During the times of the disappearance and murder of the victims, defendant Heuermann owned an architectural business located in Midtown Manhattan, and this business was the named subscriber of Heuermann's cell phone, which was active during the time of the victim's disappearance. So he's using his work phone. He's using his work phone. That's his main phone, but he has all of these burners. Okay. And subscribed to by Heuermann's home address in Massapequa Park. Although cell site records from that time period no longer existed, investigators obtained cellular billing records which showed general location information for his phone. A review of these records, as well as his American Express records, showed numerous instances where he was located in the same general locations as the burner cell phones used to contact victims Bartholomew, Waterman, and Costello. So we've got neither cellular billing records nor travel financial records could be obtained for his wife for 2007, as such records were no longer available due to retention policies. Therefore, it's undetermined at this time whether his wife travelled out of state during the time of Maureen Brainard Barnes' disappearance. So they couldn't go back as far as 2007. But what are the odds? What are the odds that she was away in 2007 when Maureen Brainard Barnes was murdered? What are the odds? I think the odds are pretty good. I'd take those odds. Okay, where were we at? All right. As well as the use of Brainard Barnes's and Barthelemy's cell phones when they were used to check voicemail and make taunting calls after the women disappeared. Significantly, investigators could find no instance where Heuermann was in a separate location from those other cell phones when such a communication event occurred. For example, on July 10th, 2009, the last day Melissa Barthelemy was seen alive, both the burner phone and defendant Heuermann's phone were in the same area, were in the area of Massapequa and travelled together towards New York City. Therefore, both Miss Barthelemy's phone and Heuermann's phone travelled eastbound towards Massapequa. So he had them both on him at the same time. On July 14th, at approximately 7:15 p.m., cell records indicate the burner phone used to contact Miss Barthelemy prior to her disappearance had activity in Manhattan. At this same date, between 6:58 p.m. and 7:22 p.m., billing records from Heuermann's cell phone showed cell locations in New York City. Can you imagine the amount of work that's gone into? Imagine the shock of these officers who start putting this together, and it starts to tell a really complete story. You know, it must be a mixture of excitement, relief that they're actually onto something. But after all that time, and they did it so quickly, once that new team was in place, I don't know whether the wife gave any tips to the police. I've no idea. We don't know yet. We don't know anything about his wife or what she knew, if she knew anything. Whether she suspected anything. We don't know. Isabel's off to work. Come back later and watch the replay, if you would like. Okay. All right, where are we? Following Miss Barthelemy's disappearance on July 17th, 2009, at approximately 12:40 p.m., a male caller using the Barthelemy phone to contact Miss Barthelemy's family. The Barthelemy phone was located in New York City at the time, specifically attached to a cellular tower located at Fort Penn Plaza, which is approximately 2,372 feet or 0.45 miles from Heuermann's then office space, which at the time was located at 19 West 36th Street, New York. See illustration below. On this same date, at approximately 1:45 p.m., billing records from Heuermann's phone show a call location in New York City. All right. So unfortunately, cell records for the burner phone used to contact Miss Brainard Barnes were not obtained at the time and no longer exist. It's because her murder was 2007, so they've not been able to get the same detail. So victim's phone's here. So 7:17. At 12:40, outgoing call, duration 1 minute. Okay, and that's the address where that took place. And that's the cell tower that it came from. And then that's his office. 19 West 36th, New York. 0.45 miles. So that's pinging off a tower. Okay, July 22nd, 2009 at 6:51 p.m. Cell site records indicate the burner phone had activity in New York, specifically attached to a cellular tower located on 19 West 34th Street, which is approximately 0.16 miles from his office space, which at the time was located at 19 West 36th. At the same day, at approximately 5:12 p.m., billing records from Heuermann's cell phone listed a call located in New York City. Okay, so what have we got here? So that's his office. So less than a quarter of a mile, less than a fifth of a mile. All right, we've got a duration of 5 seconds. This connection, this call being made. Okay. On July 23rd, at approximately 1:39 p.m., cell site records indicate that the burner phone had activity in New York. So that's the same tower, just a different time. And then July 23rd, 2009, 6:42 p.m., a male caller used the Bartholomew phone to contact her family, which we'd already heard about. So it's located in New York, specifically attached to the cell tower at 275 West 39th Street, which is approximately 0.16 miles from his office. On July 23rd, between 8:29 and 9:30, the burner phone activity in New York. Later on the same day, approximately 11:05, billing records listed a call located in Jamaica, Queens. On August 5th, between 6:50 and 7:11, male caller used the Bartholomew phone to contact Miss Bartholomew's family. During the time, Bartholomew's phone utilized the following cell phone towers in New York City, which are 2,230 to 3,280 feet from his office. And then same day, his phone listed billing locations. So we've got, this is not very clear to see, but the link to this is in the description box, so you can study this in your own time if you want to. But the duration of these calls, 29 seconds, 9 seconds, 35 seconds, 7 seconds, 31 seconds, 32 seconds, 16 seconds. What a weirdo. That's the address of the tower. And then that's his office. So you've got these phone calls pinging off all these different towers within location of his office. Thank you, Ashley, for the $10. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you. On August 10th, 2009, based upon subpoena travel documents, Heuermann departed for Iceland, and all phone activity for the Bartholomew phone stopped. On August 18th, 2009, so at least he didn't take it to Iceland with him. Right? Oh, dear. August 18th, he returned from Iceland, and the phone activity resumed the next day. What a weirdo. What a weirdo. August 19th. I mean, just look at all the data it's given them, though. Like this weirdo activity. Instead of just getting rid of the phone as quickly as you can, or, you know, just breaking it and just dumping it somewhere. No, he's making multiple calls, pinging from this cell tower and that cell tower, and just give them so much data. And it's so long ago. It's just amazing that they've been able to get all this from 2009. It's just a shame for Maureen's case that in 2007 there's not as much information available. So August 19th, 2009, at approximately 7:23, a male caller used her phone to contact her family. Cell site records indicate that the Bartholomew phone was located in New York, specifically attached to a cell tower located on 249 West 36th Street, which is approximately half a mile from his office. On this same day, before and after the call to her family at approximately 7:16 and 7:28, billing records show location in New York. So there's his office, there's the tower. An outgoing call made from her phone. So again, we've got more of this. Another cell tower, 0.42 miles. So again, pinging off this tower here. Less than half a mile away. Additional burner phones and online account activity linked to defendant Heuermann. As described herein, over the course of the comprehensive investigation, investigators located a number of online accounts and burner phones linked to defendant Heuermann, which were held by him in fictitious names and used for illicit activities. Guy thought he was slick. Yeah, he did. He did. But look at the things, though. I mean, he evaded capture for that long. He thought he was home and dry. Never underestimate the NSA. Yeah. Never underestimate. You know, if you've been a multiple murderer and you've been thinking that you're tough, thinking that you got away with it, just think that actually there could be an investigation going on that you have no idea about, and one day they're just going to pounce on you in the street to create multiple embarrassments to you. All right. Okay. American Express records obtained via subpoena revealed recurring Google Pay payments made by Heuermann to Tinder. Oh, can you imagine? Can you imagine seeing this guy on Tinder? I've never used Tinder. I don't even know which way you have to swipe to say that you like them. Which way do you swipe to say that you like them? Well, I'd swipe the other way. Let's just say that. He looks like a creep. Looks like a real creep. Okay. An online dating and geosocial networking application used to find dates or hookups within the user's immediate vicinity. Records were then obtained from Tinder, which revealed a Tinder profile was set up in the name Andy. So that's his middle name. With links to a burner phone, and there's the number, subscribed in the fictitious name Andrew Roberts, using an email account, springfieldman9@aol.com. The springfieldman9 AOL.com account was established with AOL. Is AOL still a thing? Oh, I'll remind you, I'm going back to 2011. I was going to say it's AOL still a thing, but it's a long time ago. This January 15th, 2011, in the fictitious name John Springfield, with an Astoria, Queens, New York zip code, using another burner phone. So it'd be interesting whether he did have connections to, like, what the connection was with Springfield. I don't know if it's relevant. Don't know if it would give any other information that the cops. I'm sure the cops have looked into all of that. I'm sure there's still a lot more to come out. Records obtained from Verizon showed that defendant Heuermann's cell phone was used on December 11, 2022 for a period of over 3 hours to access. Now, this is 2022. So we've jumped from 2011 to 2022. So there's this dodgy stuff starting to happen. So what went on between 2011 and 2022? Did he give it all up or what? Or is that could be 2012. I think that's a typo, honestly. Because January 2011, December 11th, 2022, I mean, it's like 11 years. still using AOL. I don't know. I don't know whether that's a typo, but anyway, it doesn't matter. For a period of over 3 hours to access the fictitious Springfield Man AOL account. Similarly, records obtained from T-Mobile show that the burner phone was used on multiple dates, including November 8, 2022. So actually, oh look. Oh, it isn't a typo. Unless there's multiple typos. So he's using this account. So from 2011 to 2022, he's still got this same account, this same AOL account. Ah, interesting. AOL is still available. Oh, okay. Okay. Well, it clearly is, if this really is 2022, and it's not just a typo by the looks of things. Okay. A review of call records for these 2 additional burner phones revealed that both phones were used extensively between 2021 and 2023 for prostitution-related contacts, either with sex workers or massage parlors. In addition, cell site warrants for these burner phones revealed that, just like the burner phones defendant Heuermann used to contact the victims prior to their disappearance, these additional burner phones have frequent cell site activity in Midtown Manhattan and Massapequa Park. Specifically, the records revealed that both these burner phones consistently had activities on the cell towers that provided coverage to his residence and his business. So I think probably they were getting nervous that all this activity was happening, and that's why they decided to swoop before it got really, really bad. Like, before any of these sex workers disappeared, shall we say. Legal process served on Google, seeking records or accounts associated with the device identifiers of these additional burner phones, revealed a connection to yet another burner or junk email account, namely Thork, and then some numbers. So herein the Thork email account. Google records further indicated that the Thork email account was subscribed in the fictitious name Thomas Hawk. A search warrant revealed that the Thork email account associated with burner phone number was used to conduct thousands of searches related to sex workers, sadistic torture-related porn, and child porn. I mean, I'm not going to read all these, but dear me. Dear me. So this is between 2021 and 2023. Thousands of searches. Look at this. So, Mistress Long Island, mature escorts, girl begging for, teen girl begging for, pretty girl with bruised face, torture, 10-year-old schoolgirl, skinny redhead tied up, short fat girl tied up and hard, tied up, tied slave force fed, crying, hog tied, 10-year-old blonde girl, chubby 10-year-old, I mean, just come on. Black girl 10 years old, girl with face beat up, chubby. So all these are searches. All these are searches. And these women, all of them, were small and very petite, so looking younger than their years. But remember, in the Shannon Gilbert case, one of the guys, one of the people that rang 911 said that he thought she was only 14. And she wasn't. She was an adult. So that's another thing, that Shannon Gilbert's death, she was surprisingly similar in body type to these others that he's now accused of. Teen girl oil body. I mean, it's just weird. Old janitor's little schoolgirl. I mean, come on now. Come on now. So it's all about children. Children. The Thork email account had also used to conduct in excess of 200 searches between March 2022 and June 23 related to active and known serial killers, the specific disappearance and murders of Maureen, Melissa, Megan, and Amber. So he's still keeping up on top of their murders. These searches are articles accessed include, but not limited to, why could law enforcement not trace the calls made by a Long Island serial killer? Why hasn't the Long Island serial killer been caught? Long Island killer, Long Island serial killer phone call, Long Island serial killer update, Long Island serial killer update 2022, FBI active serial killers by state 2023. To be fair, some of these look very much like my searches when I'm researching a case. To be fair, maybe you can say the same, you know. Map of all known serial killers, unsolved serial killers, America's 5 most notorious old cases, 11 currently active serial killers. John Bittroff. Who's John Bittroff? That's interesting. Who's John Bittroff? Megan Waterman, Melissa, Maureen, Melissa's sister, a relative of Megan. Cops launch Gilgo Beach homicide investigation task force. So he's aware that the task force was set up, mapping the Long Island murder victims inside the Long Island serial killer in Gilgo Beach. New phone technology may be key to break the case. Maybe he was just getting a bit nervous. Maybe he was getting a little bit scared. Maybe he's getting a little bit scared. I want to know who John Bittroff is. I want to know who that is. That's interesting. Who's that? Is he one of the cops? Is he someone else? I don't know. The Thork email account was also used to search for a number of podcasts and documentaries regarding this investigation, as well as repeatedly viewing hundreds of images depicting the murdered victims and members of their immediate family. So these are some of his searches. So those are 3 of them. That's Melissa. Can't read the thing there. These are some of his searches. Again, though, to be fair, these searches are not in their own, you know, in their own right. They're only problematic in the context that this guy is the killer. Oh, okay. John Bittroff is another serial killer from the area who talks about Long Island serial killers in an... Oh, okay. Interesting. So I wonder whether he was trying to see whether they were trying to link him to it, whether he was a suspect. Bittroff has been tried and convicted. So maybe he thought, maybe they're going to tie Bittroff to these murders that he'd committed. Maybe he was hoping and praying that that would be the case. Interesting. A search warrant conducted on the fictitious Springfield Man AOL account further revealed selfie photographs that appeared to have been taken by him of himself and sent to the other person to solicit and arrange for sex, further linking Heuermann to the fictitious email account. So this is the guy. This is what he was sending people. This is his Would you swipe? Whichever way. Which way is it on Tinder to swipe that you do not want to see this person ever, 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 ever? Bitchoff was a suspect in his murders. He looks like Pete. He does. He so does. He absolutely does. Harry Potter's beard. Yeah, he does. There is his glasses. There we go. There's his glasses. You disconnect the account. Oh, no way. I mean, looks aren't everything. Let's just be clear. Looks aren't everything. It only becomes problematic when they are a serial killer. You know. He's very proud of his belly, though. Sticking his belly out. Defending Heuermann was further linked to the burner cell phone and then the number because on May 19th, 2023, was observed by law enforcement via video and field surveillance at a cell phone store in Midtown Manhattan, purchasing additional minutes which were added to his phone. So they're in the store. Well, they're collecting surveillance from the store. They're following him around. There he is coming in. There he is. There he is paying his money. This is so good. Such a good investigation. Analysis of the Springfield Man 9 AOL account also led to the discovery of another email account, Hunter, and then some numbers at Gmail. So here in the Hunter 1903A3 Google account. Why didn't you just call it the Hunter Google account? I'm just going to call it the Hunter Google account. Used on February 14th, 2021 to send an image of a prostitute from upstate New York between two of Heuermann's secret email accounts. So he's sending pictures to himself. What a weirdo. Okay. Further investigation revealed that the Hunter Google account was created on February 14th, 2021 using a burner phone as the user's phone number and SMS recovery number, and subscribed in a fictitious name, Andy Roberts. So he's used that Andy Roberts before. The same fake name linked to the target Tinder profile and then this other burner phone, as well as the same alias utilized by defendant Heuermann in communications with numerous potential sex partners responding to his adverts, and the fictitious birthday of August 6, 1972. So he's 59, so he's making himself a few years younger. So instead of 59, that will put him at, I don't know, 50. So he's knocking a few years off, maybe. Knocking a few years off. Which corresponds to the digital ending of the burner account, Thork, and then the Gmail. In addition, Google provided IP address information for the user's acceptance of the terms of service, which revealed that the terms of service were accepted on February 14th, 2021, from IP address and then some numbers. Significantly, records were obtained from Altis, doing business as Optimum, which is an internet service provider, indicating the IP address at defendant Heuermann's home address. So they've got him linked directly to home, not just to the location where he lives, not just to his home area, not just to his work area, not just to towers within half a mile of his office, but directly to his home internet. Boom! There we go. Got him linked directly to home. This is so good. Moreover, based upon SCPD records for the official website, gilgonews.com, a website maintained by the SCPD to disperse news pertaining to this investigation, defendant Heuermann's home IP address was used on May 23rd, 2020 and July 3rd, 2020 to access the official news concerning this investigation. Records obtained from JetBlue also show that the same IP address was also utilized to book flights for the defendant and his wife in 2018. So they've got him linked to his home with these dodgy things, but also just doing normal things. When analysing the usage of all devices and accounts used by defendant Heuermann, there appears to be a clear pattern wherein Heuermann uses burner phones and burner junk email addresses to 1. Contact sex workers and sex partners, to conduct extensive searches related to sex and prostitution, violent, sadistic and child P, and 3. Seek online information about authorities investigating his crimes. These burner phones and email accounts with fictitious identities were used in an effort to conceal his true identity, conceal his criminal activity, unlawfully proposition sex workers, and attempt to monitor the investigation of his crimes. The thing is, though, the problem is he used his home. He got complacent. If he even thought about these things being traceable at all. Yeah, Emily. There's so many who feel they're slick, but they nailed Josh Duggar. They did. Indeed. They did. They did. We're getting into the DNA now. The DNA is my favourite part. The DNA is always my favourite part. I think it's probably because, like, technically, I know more about DNA. I can talk DNA. Whereas stuff to do with cell phones, I get it, but I'm not into the technical stuff of it. Do you know what I mean? It's the same with things like ballistics evidence and stuff like that. But the DNA, I understand it. I get it. Like, I really get it. I get the genetics of it. So it just makes it really interesting for me. Right. DNA analysis of hair recovered from the examination of the victim's body. So this is physically linking him to the victims. So they've got this bunch of cell phone stuff. They've got him linked to these dodgy things that he's doing to his home. But this, to me, is the clincher for me. This is the icing on the cake. This is really good evidence. This is physical forensic evidence. Okay. During the course of this investigation, each of the 4 victims' bodies were examined by a forensic scientist with the Suffolk County Crime Lab, which revealed the following. So Maureen had been left restrained by 3 leather belts. Can you imagine? Can you imagine those last moments? Can you imagine? And I don't know why they think they don't have enough on Maureen, like to charge him for Maureen. Like I said, I think they really will. I think they will charge him for Maureen. Okay. So, restrained by 3 leather belts, one of which was utilised to tie her feet, ankles and legs together. During the examination of the belts, a female human hair was recovered from the buckle of one of the belts by the crime lab. So this is female hair on Barnes. On or about December 18th, 2010, the Suffolk County Lab, this hair, what? On or about December 18th, the Suffolk County Laboratory, this hair, There's a missing word there, but anyway. And was able to determine that it corresponded to a Caucasian head hair fragment. Although this hair was not suitable for nuclear DNA profiling at the time, it was subsequently submitted for further DNA analysis. So there's two different types of DNA in your cells. You've got nuclear DNA, which is in the nucleus of your cells, every cell. And that's the vast majority of the DNA that makes up your genome, makes up your genetic profile that instructs your body to basically do all of the stuff that it does. So that's nuclear DNA. Now, there's another type of DNA which contains just a handful of genes, and that's mitochondrial DNA. And mitochondrial DNA is not in the nucleus of the cell, it's in the mitochondria, which is another part of the cell. It's the part of the cell that creates energy, the mitochondria. And it's passed down the female line. So you get your mitochondrial DNA from your mother, who got it from her mother, who got it from her mother, who got it from her mother. Nuclear DNA, you get 50% of that from your mother, but you also get 50% from your father. But mitochondrial DNA comes only from the female line. But if they don't have enough, or that the specimen is degraded, they can't do nuclear DNA testing. So the second best way to try and link different DNA profiles together is through mitochondrial DNA, because they only need a tiny, tiny amount of mitochondrial DNA to do the test. So that's what they've had to do. That's absolutely right, Merritt. There's been big advancement in mitochondrial DNA testing lately. They've always been able to test it, but the amount of information that they can get from it now is way better than it used to be. Like the amount that they actually need to create a viable profile is very, very small now. I know, imagine how his poor wife must be feeling. I know, I really feel for her. Because the thing is, I mean, you know, if you live with somebody, you know, transfer of hair between different items of clothing is pretty common, isn't it? Like, especially if you're sharing a bedroom, you know, let's say she's been, I don't know, putting away his clothes or something, and her hair just falls off. It's the same with, you know, we're shedding all the time. We lose between 100 and 150 hairs every single day. That's just normal shedding for humans. Like, there's my hair everywhere in my house. Like, it sheds like you wouldn't believe. It's the same if you share your house with a dog or a cat, right? You're going to have a transfer of hairs, annoyingly, onto your clothes. I used to have a white dog. Poppy was white, and she was a massive shedder. And just always white hairs all over my clothes. There's nothing you can do about it. So it doesn't mean, I'm just cutting this off at the pass, it doesn't mean to say she was involved in tying up any of these victims. What it means is that he was doing this tying up at home that he shared with his wife, or he was taking items from his home to use on these victims. Okay. Megan Waterman had been bound by clear or white duct tape. During the course of the examination, 2 female human hairs were recovered, one from outside the head area and the other from the tape of the head area. Both hairs were recovered in the vicinity of her head, hearing 2 female hairs on Waterman. Examination by the Suffolk County lab indicated that the 2 female hairs on Waterman exhibited Caucasian European characteristics, but were unsuitable for further DNA testing at the time. But they were subsequently submitted for further DNA analysis, see below. Amber Costello. An examination of the body of Amber revealed that she appeared to have been bound by 3 pieces of clear or white duct tape. During the course of the examination, a female human hair was recovered. So one hair was recovered. Just one. Like how carefully the forensics has to be done on this stuff. On a piece of tape inside of the burlap wrapping in the vicinity of Miss Costello's head. Subsequent examination of the female hair led to the determination it had Caucasian European characteristics, however, unsuitable for further DNA testing, but it was submitted for further DNA testing. See below. All right, so we've got hairs on 3 of these 4 victims, but Maureen Barnes is the one that he isn't being charged for at the current time, but they've included her in this documentation because there's so much evidence. They just don't feel they've got quite enough at the moment. But for me, they do. For me, they absolutely do, both in terms of this DNA evidence, but also in relation to his phone, his phone records. Okay, Forensic Lab 1. As noted above, the female hair on Barnes, 2 females hair on Waterman, and female hair on Costello, collectively, the female hairs recovered from the 3 victims were all sent to an outside forensic lab, herein Forensic Lab 1. It applies DNA techniques and direct genome sequencing in difficult-to-solve forensic casework and identification of human remains. In or about July 2022, Forensic Lab 1 was able to determine that each of the aforementioned female hairs recovered on the 3 victims each belonged to a female individual in mitochondrial haplotype K1C2, and that the female was not any of the victims. So, because mitochondrial DNA passes along the female line, the haplogroups, you don't need to worry about what the term haplogroup means, but it means the group that goes way back in time as to where this mitochondrial DNA originated from. You can, based on your haplogroup, you can trace your female lineage to the place where your female ancestors came from. All right. So in being able to get the mitochondrial results and showing that these hairs do not belong to the females that were killed, these are hairs that were distributed onto that body from the killer or the killer's home. What it means is they can say these hairs belong to a female that's not any of the victims and is from the same haplogroup. So yes, there's going to be potentially thousands of women or people with the haplogroup K1C2, but what are the chances of 3 different women contributing hairs to 3 of these murder victims? What are the chances? On or about July 21st, 2022, an undercover SCPD detective, oh, this is brilliant, recovered 11 bottles from a trash receptacle that had been left out for collection in front of the residence of defendant Heuermann. So remember that if you discard any items, if you put your trash out on the street for collection, or you throw a discarded bottle, cigarette, whatever, out on the street or in a trash bin in a public place, it is no longer your property, even though it contains your DNA. So what cops do is they stake you out, they follow you around looking like the Men in Black, and they wait for you to drop something. So this is exactly what was done in the Koberger case, where Michael Koberger, Brian Koberger's dad, his trash was obviously put out for collection, and they were able to raid his bins in the middle of the night, take out trash and test his DNA. So it's exactly what they've done here. So the Suffolk County Crime Lab took swabs of these bottles, which were subsequently sent to Forensic Lab 1 for DNA profiling. Based on these new submissions, on or about February 24th, 2023, Forensic Lab 1 was able to conclude that one of the DNA profiles generated from the aforementioned bottles taken from defendant Heuermann's residence indicated a female individual belonging to mitochondrial haplogroup K1C2. So what are the chances that hairs from the same haplogroup would be on each of the 3 victims, and the same haplogroup would be in the mitochondrial DNA of one of the female members of his home? So it could either be his wife or his daughter, because his wife and daughter would share the same haplogroup, providing they were biologically related. This profile was then compared against the previously tested female hair samples recovered on the remains of Megan, which indicated the 2 belonged to the same individual or someone closely related. So it could be the same individual, or it could be someone from her child, or her mother even, or grandmother, or somebody from the female line. Based upon the investigation and evidence recovered to date, the female is believed to be the wife of defendant Heuermann. So it's believed to be. It's most likely going to be, but doesn't necessarily mean it's her. Could be any other female living in his home. So it feasibly could be his daughter. Okay, Forensic Lab 2. On or about March 23rd, 2023, the Suffolk County Crime Lab requested Forensic Lab 2, a lab specializing in forensic mitochondrial analysis, to conduct additional independent analysis. So they've got this information from Forensic Lab 1, but they're getting another lab, a completely new lab, to independently test this stuff, to dot the I's and cross the T's. On or about June 12, 2023, Forensic Lab 2 issued a report concluding that the DNA sample from the female recovered from the bottles outside of the residence of defendant Heuermann, so i.e. his wife, and the female hair on Costello indicated that the mitochondrial DNA are the same at all compared positions common to and between samples, specifically at a rate that would, okay, as per the MPOP database, which is shorthand for the European DNA Profile Group Mitochondrial DNA Population Database, which is a web-based collection of human mitochondrial sequence from various populations worldwide. The North American database includes 12,386 sequences from North American forensic significance. So it's excluding 99.98% of the North American population. So it's excluding almost everyone else that they could possibly test for. So it's saying this is as close to the same person as it can possibly be. So that's just a little bit about the statistical analysis. So the margin of error database does not include every single DNA sequence of the North American forensic significance, which would require the typing of every individual in the population. But from the available data that they've got, it excludes almost 100% of everyone else. Almost. A DNA comparison is never 100%. Never, because they always have to factor in a margin of error just in the test. That's why when they say, like in Brian Koberger's case, they said 5 point something octillion, right? Octillion is a number with 27 zeros behind it. So 5 octillion is huge. It's huge. So these are not as close because they're using mitochondrial DNA. And mitochondrial DNA has got a bigger margin of error because there's less points of it to test. And the database that they're comparing to is not as extensive. But it's as good as they can do based on the DNA that was available. Because they couldn't do nuclear DNA testing, so they had to go down the mitochondrial route, which is never as accurate. However, it's good enough to convince me that the hairs on these victims were hairs that were all the same person, and it was someone that lived in his home. So it's good enough for me. Forensic Lab 2 then compared the profile associated with the DNA sample from Heuermann's wife to one of the two aforementioned female hairs recovered from Megan Waterman, which also resulted in the conclusion that the mitochondrial DNA profile are the same at all compared positions common to and between samples. So again, we're using that database to exclude 99.69%. So almost 100% of the American population from the hair recovered on Miss Waterman. Thank you, Emily, for the $10. Thank you. I do know a little bit about DNA. I'm so sad, do you know. I used to read genetic books when I was 10. That was what I was interested in. My granddad got me a special dispensation with the local library because they wouldn't allow children to take books out of the adult section for probably sensible reasons. But my granddad covered. My granddad went in the sport to him and said, could they let me have adult books? Because they only want books about dogs and books about genetics. And they said, yeah. So I was reading genetic books at 10. All right. Okay, where were we? All right. Based on the foregoing, well, also I considered becoming a geneticist. But I did psychology instead because I knew that genetics going into a biology degree might compromise my ethical stance on certain animal rights issues. So I didn't do it for that reason. And also psychology is easier. You can cruise in psychology. Whereas in biology, you have to actually concentrate. All right. Based on the foregoing, whilst 99.98% of the North American population can be excluded from the female hair on Costello, and 99.69% of the North American population are excluded from the female hair on Waterman, it is significant that RH's wife cannot be excluded from either the female hairs recovered on the remains of Megan Waterman and Amber Costello. As previously noted, his wife was out of state at the time that Miss Waterman and Miss Costello's disappearance and murder. So what they're basically trying to tell you there is that she was not involved. She wasn't there when these murders took place. So they're heading this off on the pass. I'm heading it off on the pass as well. She wasn't there. She wasn't in the state when these murders took place. So the chances are that he at least tied these poor women up in his home or in a vehicle that she used or transferred them onto this tape or in any other way. I think the most reasonable explanation is he was doing this at home. That's the most reasonable explanation for me. Okay. As such, it is likely that the burlap tape, vehicles, and other instrumentalities utilised in the furtherance of those murders came from defendant Heuermann's residence, where his wife also resides, or was transferred from his clothing. They've also got some male hair. So if you're not convinced by the female hair, the last thing they've included in this excellent indictment is the male hair directly linked to him. So they've not only got a link to his family, most likely his wife, but also directly to him. Oh, thank you, Yellow Brick Road. I'm an interesting person. Actually, I'm not. I'm really boring, to be honest. Really boring. All right. During the initial examination of Miss Waterman's skeletal remains and the burlap material, the Suffolk County Crime Lab was able to recover a male hair on the bottom of the burlap used to wrap Miss Waterman by her killer. An examination of the said hair revealed Caucasian European characteristics. However, the hair was unsuitable for DNA analysis at the time. The hair was subsequently submitted for further DNA analysis, and on or around July 31st, 2020, Forensic Lab 1 was able to generate a DNA profile for the hair recovered on the bottom of the Waterman burlap. So they've had this information since 2020. Specifically, Forensic Lab 1 determined that this hair belonged to a male in mitochondrial haplotype V7A. So that's just another haplogroup, right? I can't remember what my haplogroup is. H7, I think. So if you've done DNA with like 23andMe or Ancestry, not only do you get an ethnicity estimate, you also get your mitochondrial haplogroup, so that you can look back at where your female lineage originated from. If you're a male and you've got a Y chromosome, so if you're biological male and you've got a Y chromosome, they also do the male line. So the male chromosome comes from the male line. So father, grandfather, great grandfather, all the way back in time. So males also get a male haplogroup from the Y chromosome. But they're looking at mitochondrial DNA, which comes from your mother, traces down the female line. So following the discovery of the Chevrolet, so they've had this information from 2020, but they didn't have a suspect, so they had nothing to link it to, right? So following the discovery of the Chevrolet Avalanche, which was registered to defendant Heuermann, so this is once they got a name, then they were able to start surveilling him. And they were able to start looking at what pizza he consumed and whether he would leave the crust off his pizza. The pizza crust caught him. We should call him the pizza crust killer. Following the discovery of the Chevrolet Avalanche, which was registered to defendant Heuermann, and the investigation of cellular billing records and other items, on or about January 26, 2023, a surveillance team observed and recovered a pizza box thrown away into a garbage can in front of 385 5th Avenue in Manhattan. So he went out for a pizza and he didn't finish it. Oh, no. The pizza crust killer is the kind of goofy name he deserves. There's the bin. So they have to document everything. So they have to document, like, this is the trash bin. This is him throwing away the trash. And there's the pizza. And he left some crust. Why did he leave crust? Crust's good. Right. When I was watching WFLA last night, right, JB was like, I like the crust. He went on for about 5 minutes, like, I like the crust. Why would you leave the crust? The crust's the best part. And I wouldn't say the crust's the best part, but I do eat the crust. I don't leave a crust. Like, if I'm getting full, I'll just leave a slice. And then I'll leave the slice for a later date, because I like cold pizza. So, like, some people will eat the pizza but leave all the crust. It's like, no, just leave a complete slice or 2 slices for later. All right, so busted by a pizza. The pizza box was sent to the Suffolk County Crime Lab for analysis, where a swab was taken from the leftover pizza crust. This is how good DNA analysis is. You only like stuffed crust. You've often eaten just the crust. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, Pam, you throw away your crust too. Don't commit any murders. Don't commit any murders when the men in black are surveilling you. All right. So on or about March 23rd, 2023, they sent the swab, right? Okay. So to Forensic Lab 2. On or about April 28th, the detective hand-delivered from the Forensic Lab 1 a portion of male hair on Waterman to Forensic Lab 2 for testing. So a detective took the hair from Forensic Lab 1 to Forensic Lab 2. On or about June 12th, 2023, Forensic Lab 2 was able to determine as to the male hair on Waterman and the swab from the pizza crust, the mitochondrial DNA profile are the same, specifically at a rate that would, as per that database, exclude 99.9% of the North American population. So as close to 100% as you can with mitochondrial DNA. The male hair on Waterman's body, on her ties, is the same DNA as on the pizza crust discarded by big fatty Rex Heuemann. Maybe you should just eat less pizza, not body shaming or anything like that. Emily gifted 5 memberships. Thank you so much, Emily. Who's got it? Beach Fairy's got it. Pam, Samantha, Music City Mom, and there must be someone else who got it because that's only 4. Oh, Leah. Welcome to memberships. You get memberships for 1 month, courtesy of Emily. Thank you so much, Emily. It's very kind of you. Oh. Okay, we're nearly there. All right. So based on the foregoing, while 99.96% of the North American population can be excluded from the male hair on Waterman, it's significant that defendant Heuermann cannot be excluded from the male hair recovered from near the bottom of the burlap utilised to restrain and transport Megan Waterman's naked and deceased body. That's the evidence. So the prosecution can rest for now. So just a little bit on the arrest here. On or about the evening of July 13th, 2023, defendant Rex Heuermann was arrested by Suffolk County police officers. Searches of his residence as well as other locations are currently ongoing. So the amount of evidence that they can get from his residence, from his vehicles, that's only just beginning. Look at the information that they've got that links him to these victims right now. Imagine how much more they're going to have when all of this investigation is done. At the time of his arrest, had on him a burner phone, which was like, so he actually had on his person. He had on his person the burner phone that was linked to the Thorpe email account used to conduct the online searches described above. If convicted on the current charges, defendant faces multiple sentences of life without parole. So I take it that New York doesn't have the death penalty. That's a shame. Based on the serious, heinous nature of these offences, the strength of the people's case, it's very strong. The people have got a very strong case. The life incarceration the defendant faces upon conviction, the extreme measures this defendant took to attempt to avoid apprehension for an extended period of time, but then was so stupid in doing all of this stupid stuff with phones. The recent sadistic and child porn searches, use of fictitious names, email and cell phone burner accounts, online counter surveillance, and his access to and history of possessing firearms. Yeah, so he also has, I mean, it's not relevant to this investigation. They don't think anyway, because there's no evidence that these women were shot. They could have been, I don't know, but There's no mention. But he had like 90 odd firearms licenses or something like got potential to have access to a lot of guns. The people believe that the only means to ensure the defendant's return to court is to remand the defendant without bail. And he absolutely has been remanded without bail. He was arraigned yesterday. So we're awaiting the conclusion of, what's the next step. We're awaiting that. We're awaiting the conclusion as to, what the progress of the trial is going to be. So New York, they've got a big but kind of backlog, I guess. This might not be speedy. He does have a right to a speedy trial. He's pled not guilty, or he's said he didn't do it. He's told his lawyer he didn't do it. But based on the evidence that they've got here, will he plead guilty eventually? We don't know. We've got all that to come. We're right at the beginning. And the cops, given that they've got so much, they're also at the beginning. They're at the beginning of the next stage. So the conclusion of all of this stuff that they've been doing over the years, that's one thing. But we're just at the beginning of the next stage now, bringing this guy to justice. He is screwed, Angie, baby. Thank you so much, Carla, for the $10. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So there you go. There we have it. There we have it. That's all we know so far. That's everything we know so far. I've gone through everything. Dumb, dumb, and dumber. Yeah, it absolutely is. That was his last pizza. Yeah. Hey. All right, guys. I've been on here for 2.5 hours. These dogs are pestering me. I think they want a wee. The back door's open. I don't know why they just don't go out themselves, but they don't. I am going to be back later, though. I'm going to be back later on Michelle Walks because I want to talk about JonBenet Ramsey. I want to talk about the latest in the JonBenet Ramsey case. So that's going to be in about 5 hours. I'm going to do it for about 7 p.m. 7. Yeah, I'll do it at 7 p.m. UK time. So the scheduler for that will go up shortly. So that'll be over on my other channel, Michelle Walks. So we're talking about anyone else lose sound? I hope not. I hope not. I'm done anyway. So if my sound's going dodgy. Oh, sound's all good here. That's good. That's good. All right, guys. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being respectful. Many thanks to the mods. Thanks for the donations. And I will see you hopefully at 7 p.m. UK time. Whether you can catch it live or whether you're the replay crew, it doesn't matter. Have a great day and I'll see you later. Bye for now.